2021, dealing with the demolition, one item, the demolition of 5514 Borden. Maître Prévost, do we have any questions?
We don't have any questions on this item tonight.
Okay, so we'll go to item number 2 on the agenda. Councillor Burku.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say beforehand, because of the curfew, I wasn't able to leave the house and my internet's not working, so I'm doing it on the phone. So if it's a little wobbly, it's because I'm hand holding the phone and turning pages. So I'd like to present the item which is dealing with the demolition of 5514 Borden. I think Councillor Early said he would put it up on the screen. Basically, this is a request to demolish and reconstruct a one-story building. And the PAC has met, the demolition committee has met, and we are going to approve the request for the demolition of the property located on this lot. So I'm going to read the resolution. Whereas the demolition committee of the city of Côte Saint-Luc, being the Côte Saint-Luc City Council, has carefully considered the application for a certificate of authorization for the demolition of 5514 Borden Avenue, said application filed by Mr. Lorne Aronoff. Whereas the demolition committee has reviewed all submissions related to the said application, whereas the evaluation of the building has been determined at $222,600, whereas the applicants intend to use the land located at 5514 Borden to build a new two-story detached single-family dwelling and have thus submitted preliminary architectural drawings, whereas the demolition committee has viewed the preliminary drawings and deemed them to conform to the city of Côte Saint-Luc's bylaws, whereas no evidence has been presented to demonstrate that the proposed demolition would cause disruption to the neighborhood greater than the normal inconveniences associated with such a demolition, whereas no evidence has been presented the proposed demolition would cause any undue prejudice to the neighbors, whereas all the procedures established for the city of Côte Saint-Luc have been met when considering the present application. And I would add that I even went to the neighbors and asked them for their input, and we put a sign up in front of the building. Therefore, for all the reasons foregoing, it is hereby moved that the City Council Demolition Committee grant the certificate of authorization for the demolition of the existing two-story detached single-family dwelling located at 5514 Borden, situated on cadastral lot number 1560596, approves the prospectus for the new two-story detached single-family dwelling, that the granting of said demolition and approval of said prospectus are contingent upon the following conditions. Number 1, the applicant's contractors furnish the city of Côte Saint-Luc with proof of insurance, which is satisfactory to the city. The necessary monetary guarantee of $44,520 be obtained pursuant to bylaw 2345, the whole within the 30 days following the date of this decision. The construction delays for the new building be 1 year from the time the building permits for the new dwellings are issued, pursuant to Article 4-10 of Bylaw 2088, being the consolidated building bylaw of the city of Côte Saint-Luc. The demolition work and all reconstruction work must be conforming to demolition bylaw 2345. The present certificate of authorization becomes null and void if the demolition work did not start within 3 months after issuing the certificate and is not completed within 4 months after starting the demolition work. The hours to perform the demolition work and all reconstruction work are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. during weekdays. No work is permitted on weekends. The construction site must be protected by a fence conforming to construction bylaw 2088-9, solid, at least 6 feet in height and completely opaque. The construction site and the adjacent public property must be maintained during the demolition work and all reconstruction work. In the event that the construction site or adjacent public property is not properly maintained, an invoice representing any costs incurred will be sent to the owner. The existing trees must be protected during the demolition work and all reconstruction work. 5 days before the occupation of the street, the applicant must apply for an occupation permit in order to park or place equipment on the street at the cost of $100 per day, in addition to paying an application fee of $75. The owner will be held responsible for all damages caused to public property during the demolition work and all reconstruction work. The $2,500 deposit will be invoiced when the construction permit will be issued. This deposit is an estimate in case of damages caused to public property during demolition and construction work. If the deposit is not enough to cover the cost of the damages, an invoice will be sent to the owner for the entire balance owed. All measures must be undertaken to prevent inconveniences related to noise, dust, pollution, dirty streets, and vermin. And the lot must be cleared of all debris and or material no later than 5 days after the completion of the demolition work and all reconstruction work. The demolition debris must be transported out of the site and cannot be left on city property. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Berku. Seconded by Councillor Sabag. Any discussion?
So as I,
Okay,
yeah,
go ahead.
as I said, we put the sign on the property. We posted a sign in the Suburban. It was published in Suburban, and I went knocking on some doors. So it passed the pack. I think it's a very nice project, and we're looking forward to some new beautiful construction. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, moved and seconded, all in favor. Anyone opposed? Carried unanimously. And now I motion for adjournment of this special meeting, and then we'll go right into the public meeting. Moved by adjournment. Councillor Sabag, seconded by Councillor Kajavsky. All in favor? We're adjourned. Okay, now we're going to go in directly to the regular monthly meeting of Monday, April the 12th, 2021. I'd like to welcome you all here today. I have with me Councillor David Torgman, Councillor Stephen Erdely, Councillor Dita Berku, Councillor Sidney Benizri, Councillor Oren Sabag, Councillor Mitch Kajavsky, Councillor Mike Cohn, myself, the mayor. We have also with us staff, including our city clerk, Jason Prevost, who will ask the questions shortly, read out the questions, and we have our city manager, Jonathan Schechter, and other members of staff. Thank you all for being with us. Before I start, as is the tradition, and I will give a COVID-19 update right following, we'll have a moment of silence to hope and pray for all those who are presently ill, and many in hospital, and those who we've lost. For a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So first an update on the COVID-19 situation. Unfortunately, the situation in the city of Côte Saint-Luc is not great. Our seniors are doing well, so it shows the vaccine is working. The people that are most infected continue to be children and their parents, individuals, and their teens and their 20s and 30s and 40s. And as we know, there are people that are on ventilators in the emergency in the age group below 60. So the virus and the variant is quite transmissible. I was talking with Dr. Kaiser today, and he wrote me in a big email, all capitals, please tell people no family gatherings, no family gatherings. That is the data they have. The cases are happening from people inside their homes, gathering with others, not wearing masks. That's the statistical information that they have. The police are out giving lots of tickets. The update from Commander Dion at Station 9 is that tickets are being given out for offenses right now because they don't want us to end up in lockdown like we see is happening in Ontario, and we're hopeful that we don't end up there. So we're hoping that people can respect the rules, and we're doing our best on our end. Everybody has to continue to do their best. We know it's beautiful now. Spend your time outside, enjoy the good weather, do physical activities, and if you're close to somebody who's not from your bubble, wear a mask even when you're outside. But the chance of transmission when you're outside is very small. So just stay outside, have fun, the weather's good, and enjoy the early summer that we've had, and the numbers should go down. And more people will get vaccinated, and as more people get vaccinated, we will beat the variant and we'll be in a good situation. It's just a matter of time. We need to be a little more vigilant for a few more months. Okay, I'd also want to announce we're having the blood donor clinic. Where's my info on the blood donor clinic? Okay, so many papers. Okay, there is the Ruth Kovac Blood Donor Clinic, which will take place on Tuesday, May the 4th, 2021, between 1 p.m. and 8 p.m. at the gym at 5794. You know where our gymnasium is at the Aquatic Community Center. And you can book an appointment either by calling 1-800-343-7264 or emailing. It's all on our website. You just have to go to our website or the HEMA Quebec website. And yeah, you can get all the information. Daryl, if you have that information and you want to post it on the chat or somewhere, the email for HEMA Quebec and the website and phone number, that could be useful for our viewers who may want to give blood, which is desperately needed, particularly at this time. So please, those who can, do give blood. Let's go back to my notes. I also wanted to announce, for those who don't know, I'm sure most of you do know, we're very fortunate and thankful to the Government of Canada and the Government of Quebec, our Member of Parliament, Anthony Housefather, and our Member of the National Assembly, David Birnbaum, as well, for putting us in the right direction in terms of knowing that a sports grant was available. And we are now receiving close to $4 million, $2 million from each level of government, just under $2 million from each level of government. And the city will be putting in around $2.5 million for a $6.5 million project. It's going to be great. And thank you so much for that well-needed money. It's going to be a wonderful park. And thank you, Councillor Kujawski and staff, for all the work that went into the grant proposal. And it's going to be an absolutely wonderful, wonderful park. So we have a lot of, we're excited about that. Now, we have a lot of events happening this week in our community. The first event that's happening, which starts at sundown tomorrow, is Ramadan. Ramadan is celebrated by many individuals in the city of Côte Saint-Luc and beyond. So Darrow, you can show the video and then we'll go to discussing the next events that are happening this week.
Assalamu alaikum. At sunset, Muslims in Côte Saint-Luc and around the world will mark the start of Ramadan, which begins an important spiritual journey. Ramadan takes place during the 9th month of the Islamic calendar to commemorate the revelation of the Quran to the Prophet Muhammad. The holy month is a time for reflection, personal sacrifice of material comforts, and spiritual devotion through prayer, fasting, and charity. Au lors du coucher du soleil chaque jour, vous romprez le jeûne avec l'iftar. Au nom de la ville de Côte Saint-Luc, nous souhaitons la paix et la bénédiction à tous ceux qui célèbrent le mois sacré de Ramadan. Ramadan Mubarak.
So to all of our residents who celebrate Ramadan, we wish you a very good month and good health. And may everybody be blessed with good health and strength and happiness in the year to come. Also, tomorrow night starts Yom HaZikaron, which is always the saddest day for the community of Israel and Jews around the world, as we remember all those we have lost in the wars of Israel. And of course, this community has a large Jewish community, also very many individuals who are from Israel. So after that, we have Yom Ha'atzmaut, and that's going to be a little different this year. So Darryl, just play the video.
This year, once again, we will celebrate Yom Ha'atzmaut a little differently, but it will be better this year because a parade will be going through our streets. And I want to thank our Director of Public Safety, Philip Chateauvert, for working with the Yom Ha'atzmaut Committee to ensure that everything goes smoothly. Enjoy Yom Ha'atzmaut, and remember the price we have paid to celebrate this day and our obligation and duty to ensure that we continue to help build a great nation that gives our lives special meaning. Au nom de la conseil de la ville de Côte Saint-Luc, un joyeux Yom Ha'atzmaut.
So it's a very special week this week for many members of our community and residents of Côte Saint-Luc, and we wish everybody great celebrations. There will be parade going through a car, I think about 20 cars driving through the streets of Côte Saint-Luc and throughout the city of Montreal. And about half of the route is through our city. So at least we'll get that festive feeling of Yom Ha'atzmaut this Thursday. Everybody look out for the cars in the parade and come out from your doorsteps and wave. Okay, so now we're going into the question period. Maître Prévost.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight we have 15 questions, so I'm going to start with the first one from Whitty Scheid. I'm bringing the noise and pollution that lawnmowers and leaf blowers create to your attention. On August 12, 2019, bylaw 2470, a bylaw to regulate nuisance, changed various other city bylaws. Article 9.9 and 9.2 and 9.4 permit the use of leaf blowers and lawnmowers anytime between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. But it says that the noise shall not project the borders of the property where it originates. I'm much affected by the noise caused by the neighbors' leaf blowing and lawn mowing in summer and autumn. Many cities and boroughs and communities recognize the negative environmental impact that these machines produce and have changed laws. Will the Côte Saint-Luc Council curtail the time allowed to leaf blowers and lawnmowers?
Okay, well, thank you for that question. This has been an issue that has been discussed by council, and we have undertaken to deal with the issue. We understand your question deals with the times that they're allowed, when the start date should be, and what hours of the day. And this is something that we're presently studying in order to put into a bylaw. So thank you for that question. And I'm going to ask Maître Prévost to make sure that that's a follow-up with the legal department so that we remember to move forward on this issue. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go to the second question that is from Pauline Parsons. With the increasing number of families adopting dogs, would it be possible to improve the Côte Saint-Luc dog park? A row of wooden benches, 4 inches large in the larger dog park and 2 in the smaller dog park, and 2 cedar pergolas, 1 for the larger dog park and 1 for the smaller park.
Okay, well, we definitely always want the experience for dog owners to be the best possible, and this exact information I would ask Maître Prévost to have it emailed as written to Public Works. We have the email of the individual, Pauline Parsons, at the top, and I'd like her to get a written response back with me copied on what we can do with respect to the dog park. So thank you for asking that question.
Okay, the next question is from Stephen Cates. My street and most of the sidewalks on it need to be replaced, and the sooner the better. We have lived here for more than 40 years, and I do not remember when the last time the street was repaved or improved. I realize that it is probably not the most important item on your list of projects to do, but it is getting worse and worse as time goes on. Also, do you ever cut the trees that are near the stop signs on streets? It seems to me that most of the residents on our street do not see where the stop signs are, as most of the time they just drive on Holland as if it's a street without stop signs. The warmer weather, the faster they drive, and that is why I have been asking for speed bumps for years. Just as a reference, this is Chemin Holland.
Okay, well, in terms of the trees, if you do notice, we do, of course, cut trees around any safety signs, including stop signs. But if you do notice any that need trimming, please let us know. You can email myself and brownstein@cotesaintluc.org for any tree that needs to be trimmed around a stop sign. In terms of speed bumps, if there's a request for speed bumps, we send it to the traffic committee. So I'm not sure if this is an official request, but if it is, again, you could always send it to mbrownstein@cotesaintluc.org or engineering@cotesaintluc.org. And we'll make sure that the traffic committee considers it. For sidewalks, if there are particular sidewalks that need repair, the proper email is engineering@cotesaintluc.org. Copy me and brownstein@cotesaintluc.org as well. If there are specific sidewalks, maybe you take a picture or give the address where they are. For roads, I don't have the answer about when your road is on the list for repair, but we can certainly get that information back to you. So also an undertaking, since we have Mr. Cate's email, Maître Prévost, is let's find out the schedule for Holland and get back to him.
Okay, thank you. The next question is from Wibke Scheid. Last summer, the Côte Saint-Luc road section at the very western end, Brownsfield, had been cleared of diseased trees and overgrown bushes. On today's bike ride, April 6th, I observed that fortunately the wetlands on the northern side of the road close to the tracks have been untouched and kept intact. I observed that some 25 young trees planted between Smart Street and the dog run survived the winter. A culvert pipe had recently been built considering the flow of a Saint-Pierre River tributary. There are now large stretches of empty areas where trees and bushes had been. My questions are, what is the city's plan to rewilding this area, offering the citizens meadows, picnic places, shady tree canopies? And second question, wetlands are so important to our flora and fauna. Suffering from climate changes, will the city keep the area as is, thus maintaining necessary biodiversity?
Well, we're very interested in protecting our wetlands throughout the city of Côte Saint-Luc, and Côte Saint-Luc Road is an important component. This area will be protected and analyzed by our Environment Division. We're planning to plant indigenous plants and trees, encourage new ecosystems in areas where possible, and create a space that eventually will be available to all, including young students who will be able to analyze the results of our initiatives. This project will be ongoing for many years to come. And I'm also happy to note that you notice the new tree saplings. This is an attempt to revegetate and develop a larger canopy in the area from Westminster until the golf course. They survived the winter because the Public Works Department planted them in-house, and then the in-house snow operations made sure to protect them from the salt during the winter. This is a collaborative initiative of the department for the neighborhood. I'm also pleased that you noticed the culvert pipe. Something was very important to help the flow of the river and preserve nature there without damage. We are letting the south side grow naturally with indigenous bushes and plants. The majority of the north side belongs to CP, except for the dog run and the little pathway east of it. There, we're planning to plant many trees. Buckthorn had taken over and destroyed the terrain. We plan to change the soil, remove any roots from buckthorn, and plant indigenous trees and bushes. We're planning to speak to CP and negotiate for future planting together with our city. And with respect to your two questions, so we're planning to organize installations of urban furniture in areas where residents can enjoy nature on this road. And biodiversity is very important to our city, and our new Environment Division will be focusing on developing beautiful initiatives to support our flora and fauna with what's necessary. And that's with, and those answers were with great support of Director Bibi Newman from Public Works, who's working with her team to take care of this area. So thank you, Director Newman, and thank you for asking this question. Maître Prévost.
Yes, the next question is from Beverly Walker. People don't like change. In reading many of the comments at the public consultation meeting on the Colel zoning, the underlying feeling was fear of change. Their arguments didn't convince me. All new buildings, whatever their purpose, shake up the status quo as neighborhoods evolve. What did convince me that the rezoning should not go forward were the words of Councillor Burku at the March 8th City Council meeting. She explained that the Town Planning Committee rejected the zoning request and project as presented. She also detailed the ways that Colel has apparently not acted in good faith over the past few years in its dealings with the city. Mayor Brownstein, the land that the city has agreed to sell belongs to the public. Once it is sold, it cannot be used by the city nor by any other group, including the other congregations operating out of homes. Like Colel, these congregations aren't zoned for that type of use and could benefit from a larger space in a properly zoned area. My questions are as follows. Were those other congregations offered the same opportunity to purchase this land, perhaps in some kind of auction system? Why do some city council members continue to advocate for one institution in spite of strong objections from the city's own experts at the Town Planning Committee?
Every institution, religious organization is important to our community. And it's not a question of going out to communities, it's they come to us. So this particular community came to us with a request for a place, and this is our second attempt to find them a location. We looked to the first location in 2017, didn't go forward. So we found this piece of land, and we, as the city, offered them this land for purchase, which they put down a $50,000 deposit. And yeah, I think that answers your questions.
Okay, the next question is from Philomena Gofi. The ongoing question, which repeatedly gets pushed away and ignored, when will you return the impasse to Glencrest and Bailey as it had been prior? The easy, ultimate avoidance answer by present mayor, who dismissed my last two requests, is that there are too many cars going through. What about safety of children when detoured to Merton School area? I request a conclusive reply.
Right. I don't feel that I've been not clear, but I want to be perfectly clear. I know a lot of people that live on Glencrest. We've spoken to the residents on Glencrest, and the change was made with their consultation. You may be against it. The majority of residents are for it. They feel it's safer having it one way, and at this time, it will not change. I hope that's very clear. You can ask the question again, but it's not going to change anything. The people on that street, for the most part, are happy with the one way, and it's safer based on all our professionals. So it's staying one way. Next question, please.
Next question is from Lorna Bierbreyer. Can public security issue tickets to the huge groups that were gathered in parks and on lawns last Saturday? If not, what should be done to report this?
Okay, well, as I said in my opening comments, being outdoors is a lot safer than indoors. And if you are closer than you can be, you're supposed to wear a mask. But being outdoors, 2 family bubbles are allowed to be together. And if you're not from the same bubble, you should be wearing masks when you're outdoors. And if you're apart from each other, you don't have to wear a mask. It's your choice if you're more than 6 feet apart from individuals that are not from your family bubble. In terms of tickets, yes, lots of tickets have been given out. The information that I have is most tickets were given out for indoor activities, not outdoor, but some are given outdoors if it's obvious that large groups were gathering, more than, just 2 family bubbles, but large groups, not necessarily in Côte Saint-Luc, but public presence of the police is quite apparent. I mean, if people notice it. I don't know if you have noticed it, but there's a lot more police out on the street since we've moved to the present situation where the regulations have gotten tighter, and they don't want the situation to get worse. So we do all understand the situation. Commander D out of Station 9 writes me almost every day with an update on what they're doing. They're trying their best. Our public security do not have the right to ticket, only the police do. They're out there monitoring and doing their best. But it's up to the community to try to respect the regulations so they don't get tickets. We don't want anybody to get tickets. Doesn't make anybody feel good. We just want everybody to stay healthy. But the police are doing their job. They're trying the best they can. They can't be everywhere all of the time. But we still do recommend that people meet outdoors safely than in their homes.
Okay. The next question is from David Schwartzman. I'm concerned about proposed rezoning of city-owned large portion of green space to allow for the construction of a building for religious use by a small segment of our community. The design of the building has been described to an extent indicating that plans are well advanced with a specific entity already known who would become the owner and developer of this land. So there's 3 questions. Please confirm who is the current owner of this large green space. The second question to council concerns the money to be paid to the city if this green space is eventually to be sold. Have bidders been or will they be invited to submit proposals so that all citizens of Côte Saint-Luc are assured that their best economic interests are being taken into account? And the last question concerns the wording and artist drawings for rezoning to enable the construction of a religious institution. Have the conditions been made so specific as to only permit as to permit only a pre-selected entity to become the owner of this land?
It's owned by the city, and as I said already, I think for a previous question, we had a previous site and it didn't go through. So now the city found this piece of land, and $50,000 has been put towards the land, which has been sold. Well, not sold. It will be sold in full for $500,000 if if the project goes through. But the price is $50,000 down for a $500,000 price based on market value, and the city found this piece of land, which is owned by the city, as a potential site for the Colel. Okay.
The next question is from Norman Sabin. One could argue speed bumps slow emergency vehicles, increase GHG emissions, look ugly, can damage cars and even injure occupants. As well, drivers can overfocus on the bumps ahead and lose awareness for children, adults, cyclists, and other vehicles. No doubt drivers have been speeding on residential streets for decades, every day of every year. Yet, thinking back to the years before speed bumps, I cannot remember a speeding car causing an accident on side streets in my neighborhood. Suppose Côte Saint-Luc is considering placing speed bumps on a residential street, but this street hasn't had a speeding related accident involving people or property for at least 20 years, if ever. We all want safe streets, but how would placing speed bumps make this street safer?
Speed bumps are just one of the tools that the city of Côte Saint-Luc uses to help reduce speed. We use flower pots to sometimes narrow the streets. We have signs where we have speed limits and police presence to try to enforce those speed limits. So there's many things that we do. And of course, always our priority is the safety and security of the neighborhood, and particularly the pedestrians. So that's why we do these things and try to control the speed of cars. It's to protect the residents, pedestrians. Thank you.
The next question is from Harris Black. This is on the proposed synagogue on Mackle. Not only will precious green space disappear, but have you ever noticed the shortage of parking for the employees of Maimonides Geriatric Center? Many of the synagogue visitors are old, and it can be difficult to walk 3 or 4 blocks to make a visit.
The first draft reading allowed for a 15-day consultation period, and many questions came in, and one of them was the issue of parking and traffic. So of course it's something that's under a study right now for going forward. The issue is well received.
The next question is from Mickey Harar. On March 22nd, 2021, the city of Côte Saint-Luc hosted a consultation for the Colel project. Residents were invited to submit questions and comments in writing. Will the questions be made public, or will you provide everyone a summary of the questions? Does the city have a plan to communicate this information? How does the city answer these questions and comments? How will the council take them into account? On a personal note, the tenure of the conversation and the tone of the comments made by councillors at the city at the city council meeting on March 8th was regretful, embarrassing, and abusive. Going forward, please ensure that the level of decorum is raised. Certain councillors would benefit from a pep talk regarding gum chewing. Yeah, so some of this is relatively easy to do in a virtual environment, since you can ensure that only those recognized to speak will be unmuted. What will the city do to ensure that your meeting will be held in a respectful atmosphere that is free of intimidation and harassment?
Okay, there were a lot of questions. We'll start with
there was a lot of questions. So there were 5 in total. Okay,
so the first questions, I think Maitre Provo might be able to answer more than me. We do give a summary, and of the questions and answers, but the city tonight is on the agenda, and councillors will be speaking to the feedback that we received. So we speak to it in generalities, but we give all the information based on what we did receive. In terms of the last council meeting, I too was not pleased, and that's I'm the chair of the meeting, so I take full responsibility for keeping control of the meeting, and have spoken to other mayors since that meeting about the different steps that they take in order to keep decorum, and I have implemented them, some of them today, and I believe that the experience at today's public council meeting will be much more respectful and pleasant. And thank you for your comments. We'll all do our best to make proud the office for which we serve. Thanks to the residents of Côte Saint-Luc electing us to this position. And thank you. We received 106, I'm trying to answer all the questions next. We received 164 emails between March 17th and March 31st, which was the consultation period. We can't reveal the questions and names of those who wrote us for privacy reasons, but they were various reasons why they opposed the present project. The 164 emails that we received stated various reasons for opposition to the project, and they weren't different from what was heard at the consultation process. They were basically all covered at the public consultation hearing that we had. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, next question is from Laurent Levy. We as Côte Saint-Luc residents have some concerns that we would like you to address during tonight's council meeting. What is your plan to address the pollution problem in our streets due to all the littered PPE? Are we not concerned that all the masks, gloves, and garbage all over our street will be the start of an epidemic? There are concerns about the growing anti-Semitism in Montreal's SPVM. I and other residents of Côte Saint-Luc would like to know what you plan on doing if the situation gets more out of hand and reaches our doorstep. Some residents are wondering if the municipal taxes we paid in 2020 went towards all the city improvements they were supposed to go to, or were they spent on COVID-related implementations? If so, how will you catch up on the budget without charging us more taxes to cover the loss? And that covers it. Those are the three questions.
Thank you. Okay, so the first question in terms of the litter, I don't like seeing it either. And our public works department is doing their best to clean the city, particularly now at this season. They're out there in numbers, cleaning our streets and picking up any PPE that's littered, although we would ask the public not to do so. We have enough garbage cans that you can drop them in there. But I haven't heard anything from health officials that say that there's extra risks from littered masks, as long as you don't touch them and then touch your face. I hope that it's more of an accident than individuals doing it on purpose. And let's all try to show our civic pride and do the right thing and throw out our garbage, and particularly our PPE. In terms of the SPVM in the city of Côte Saint-Luc, we have an excellent relationship with Commander Diot, so I have none of those concerns with respect to the way in which Commander Diot and his police force responds to our community. In terms of taxes, we certainly have had some extra expenses due to COVID-19, and the Quebec government paid the city for many of those extra expenses. So it did not affect the 2020 taxes. And the AGLO reimbursed Côte Saint-Luc over $100,000 to help cover additional COVID-19 related expenses. So we pay into the AGLO and sometimes we get some money back. But basically, we were able to keep our tax rate at 0 this year for the average family home. Okay, next question.
Yes, next question is from Irving Shook. Has the city performed a traffic study to know what the effect will be of having so many more cars coming to the area, including the residential streets of the proposed new zone? What were the results? What is the city planning? What is the city's plan regarding the illegal synagogues having service within homes and duplexes? The first question was pertaining to the Colel project.
Traffic studies have not yet been done for that project. It's definitely a good recommendation as we move forward. In terms of the non-conforming religious institutions in homes, this council has committed to PCMWA bylaw, which is one that requires that each one of these 7 that exist presently in our community will have to apply for an additional use, and the community will have the right to vote it down or approve it. If they approve it, then they'll be able to stay where they are. And if they don't, then the city is also looking at strip malls to add additional usage for religious purposes in the event that any of these non-conforming institutions would have to move. So that is the position of the council. And we also took a position that we will not tolerate any new religious institutions popping up next to people's homes, and those will not be allowed. So we're only dealing with the 7 that exist to determine whether their neighbors are happy with them where they are. Some have been there for more than 30 years or not. And we will then follow our bylaw, our PCMWA bylaw, that will be guiding us through a process as explained. So that's the future for the non-conforming synagogues.
Okay, the next question is from Lior Azarad. In reference to the proposed Kollel project on Mako, who suggested the lot next to Public Works, and was the thinking that because it's away from residents, it is a perfect place?
That was the thinking, and if I remember correctly, I think it was the director of Public Works that had the idea and presented it to council. I think that's correct. Okay.
This is the last question from Jonathan Ayalon. Was the city works plot of land initially proposed by the city for this project bigger than the current proposed land, which would have allowed them to build a lower building and possibly parking? For the Kollel project, would the city be open to selling more land next to the building for parking to be built for their project?
Was the city's plot of land initially proposed? I'm not understanding the question. Was the city works plot of land initially proposed by the city for this project bigger than the current proposed land, which would have allowed them to build a lower building and possibly parking? That's not clear.
I think you may be referring to the initial project prior to this one.
The first land was not owned by the city. It was private property. It was a semi-detached duplex lot, and it was smaller than this lot. Different configuration, but smaller. Councillor Torchman, do you have an answer to that question? Councillor Torchman.
No, I'm just from the question, the way it was read, I'm thinking that initially we had proposed a larger piece of land at Public Works. I think that's what the question is referring to.
Okay, I'm not up to speed, but that is what our professionals ended up suggesting, and we offered them that land based on our professionals and the amount of land that the Public Works Department was willing to give up. Would be willing to sell more land. The problem is Public Works has stated clearly that they need all the other area, including their parking for their trucks and their operations, and they weren't able to give up more land. So that was all the land that we could give up. But it is significantly bigger than the initial site that was not city land, the previous location. So I think that's it for the questions, unless there's any others for that. That's it for now, until the end of the meeting.
That's it for now.
Okay. All right. So then we'll go to a second item on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes. Councillor Cohen.
I so move, Mr. Mayor.
So moved by Councillor Cohen and seconded by Councillor Sabag. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Business arising from the minutes. So we move to the departmental reports. Councillor Cohen.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I so move that we adopt the departmental and council reports. I thank Maitre Jason and Maitre Schechter for, after 16 years on council, we finally have a very nice title. These are the reports prepared by our directors, very interesting and thorough reports, but also an opportunity for councillors to report on their dossiers.
So moved by Councillor Cohen, seconded by Councillor Sabag. Any discussion? Councillor Burku.
Oh, okay, thank you. So I was just adjusting my camera, but that's fine. I just wanted to announce that we're going to do Jane's Walk again this year. Janine West from the library and I have been working on a Jane's Walk for the Rand and Borden area in Côte Saint-Luc, off of Côte Saint-Luc Road. And it's going to be virtual because we cannot do it in person on the weekend of May 7th, and it'll be posted on our website, and the residents can follow the Jane's Walk. That is going to give a historic story and also talk about the beautiful modern buildings that we have there along Randall. We have a cluster of modern construction, sort of modernist Art Deco style homes that is very unique in certainly in Côte Saint-Luc and on the island of Montreal. So it should be interesting. And I invite the residents to view it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burku. Councillor Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to let you know that it rained cats and dogs in the last few weeks. That means the Cats Committee and the Dog Owners Committee convened with me by Zoom. We actually opened the door to new members. The Cats Committee got a number of new people who wanted to join us. And one of the most and the young lady who sent us the question earlier in question period, I would encourage her first to go to CSL Central Bark, which is our dog owners page, Facebook page, where we have a lot of information and we take a lot of suggestions. And perhaps also when she sends her request, please make sure I get a copy so I can share it with the committee. The most important thing we want to share for dog owners and cat owners is microchipping is now mandatory in Côte Saint-Luc. The law came down in Montreal and neighboring municipalities more than a year ago. We gave a year of grace. So if you have not got a microchip for your dog or your cat, and it doesn't matter if you have an indoor cat like I do, my cat's 12 years old. She's never, ever seen the outside, but God forbid she does. God forbid she escaped and someone found her. You bring them to the vet, and if they have a microchip, bingo, they're returned to you. And we know we hear a lot of stories about cats that don't return home. And we just had one on our committee, and the owner's traumatized. She's giving a substantial reward if someone can find her cat, but the cat's been gone for a few weeks. And we know it's happened to dog owners, and they're part of your family, and a microchip can really save them. So that's the message I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cohen. Councillor Erdely.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I'll segue Councillor Cohen by mentioning on the finance report, we've had 57 pet permits issued this month and last month. So as a reminder to all dog owners and I would say cat owners too as well, especially if you're allowing your cat to go outside, please make sure to get your permit from the city, get your tag, and make sure it's on your dog, in addition to the microchipping, as Councillor Cohen mentioned. On the finance front, a few points I wanted to share. The audit has begun. So in Côte Saint-Luc, the financial year is from January 1st to December 31st. So we're doing the audit for 2020. We began with our auditors, Deloitte, and it should be completed in the next few weeks. And of course, we'll report to the residents as soon as we have the final audited statements. A reminder about the tax due dates. As previously mentioned, we pushed them back this year because the agglomeration pushed back the date where we have to pay what's called our quote par. So the dates for everyone to remember, May 27th and August 25th. So that's for the first and second installment respectively. And again, a reminder to, if you're paying online, to try to pay a day or two early. Just keeping in mind that sometimes there's a delay on the bank side to process, and we don't want anyone to be charged any late fees. And if you do deposit a check or drop off a check at City Hall, you can have the checks post-dated on those dates. And the last thing, I'm just looking at my notes, I wanted to mention on the district side that the section of West Loop, the stretch of West Loop between Magnolia and Edinburgh, will be repaved starting later April, weather permitting. It's been a stretch, that stretch of West Luke has been the worst in the district for quite a few years. Was supposed to be done last year, but had to be delayed because of COVID, and was actually supposed to be done, I think, even the year before. But hopefully it'll be done beautifully in the next few weeks or few months, and I hope residents will be happy in the end. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all for now.
Thank you, Councillor Early. Councillor Torchman. That's about it.
Amongst other things at the library, on April 29th, there's a painting night, and you can reserve your canvas and pick it up at our contact-free pickup at the library. As well, with the curfew at 8 o'clock, if you have nothing to do for the evenings, you can get your books ahead of time. There's the call-in program that's going on regularly with fantastic programming throughout the week. I want to thank Director Janine, who's starting a Persian section of the library with Persian books that are going to be available, and possibly even a Persian book club for our residents. And in the engineering department, the lead in the water test project is well underway in terms of preparation. Our line painting will be starting at the end of April. As Councillor Erdely just mentioned, the preparations for asphalt repairs and some road repairs is underway. And so it's a good step forward in repairing our infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Torchman. Councillor Sabag. And then Councillor Ben Israel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I just want to perhaps reiterate some of the reminders that you did at the beginning, Mr. Mayor, around the blood donor clinic and an incredible initiative that we had from one of our late councillors. And I think this is the first year that we're naming that particular blood drive in her memory. I do want to tell you how important it is to give blood this year, and hopefully we'll have some new donors. I know certain council members do join me in giving blood. I hope everybody is able to do so we can meet this year's target as well. On the front, where it comes down to statistics on our EMS side, I wanted to share some numbers with you. I think they're super important. We've received 746 calls in the month of March. That is a total of around 30 hours of discussion time with our residents. But what's really important, and I think this is a great effort being done by our dispatch, is being a little bit more responsive when it comes to answering the phone. We've received numerous complaints over the years around the length of time that it takes for our dispatch to answer. I've called for a couple of times where I've been put on hold for an extended number of time, and it can be frustrating. Our residents have emailed us and let us know that's something that they wanted to see change. So we are implementing a huge initiative when it comes to being able to respond faster to our residents. So I'm happy to say that the average time of a telephone conversation with the residents was about 2 minutes and 25 seconds, with a average time to respond to the call of about 40 seconds. That is quite amazing when you think about it, and that's not counting the emergency calls. On the emergency call side, I'd like to say that we've been able to cover 100% of our shifts for EMS. We've received 150 calls, 150 calls, I should say, where we needed to intervene, and that equals to around close to 1,870 hours from our volunteers. And I've decided that every chance I get to publicly acknowledge these amazing volunteers, I'll try and do so with your permission, Mr. Mayor. Robert Rousseau, 9 years of service, Mark Sorin, 4 years of service, and Peter Garish, 4 years of service this month, and we thank them dearly for all their hard work. That's it for me, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sabag. Councillor Ben-Isri.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Concerning Public Works, just want to report that from March 23rd to March 26th, we had the spring cleaning drop-off, very successful. Residents drop off their excess of waste. With the nice weather, parks are starting to get busy. Swings in all parks had been installed over the past weekend, and there is a priority in place to perform a deep cleaning at all parks in the city. We are excited to present a new project. I think we spoke about it already. We're gonna have new black bins for waste, are coming soon to single family homes and duplexes. More than 4,000 will be distributed. You will be receiving soon a flyer at your house. For more information, you can visit côtesaintluc.org/blackbeans. You're gonna have more information concerning this program. So thank you to our director at Public Works, Beatrice Newman, and all her team, for the good work, especially in this time in the pandemic. Ce n'est pas évident. So thank you, merci.
Thank you, Councillor Ben-Isri. Councillor Kajewski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'll be brief. I'll hit a couple of departments. I'd like to segue something that Councillor Early said earlier, but the reconstruction of West Luke will also be reconstructing Hudson Avenue between Mackle and the city track, something that, again, we were planning on doing last year. So we're finally getting to Hudson, and I'm sure the residents very much appreciate that their street will be rebuilt and the sidewalks, and they'll be getting LED lights as well. You mentioned off the top, Kerwin Park, that we're very excited. We were very excited to have announced the grants from the federal and provincial governments the other day. I'd like to reiterate what I've said on Facebook numerous times and thank council, thank staff, in particular, Associate City Manager Tanya Bramovich, Marianne Zalzal in engineering, and Sunny Morose from Anthony Housefather's office for helping us with that grant preparation. And thank you to the federal and provincial governments for awarding that grant to us. Briefly about recreation, we had day camp registration and spring activity registration that opened last week. Day camp is completely sold out, which obviously reflects very positively on the department. People are excited to have their kids outside and going to camp again, my kids included. And hopefully we're able to announce in the coming weeks and months the opening of Park Haven Pool soon and other facilities. Continue to encourage everyone to follow public health guidelines so we can get there as quickly as possible and enjoy our summer. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kajewski. Anyone else? I think everybody spoke. Okay, great. So moved and seconded, all in favor of the departmental and council reports. Okay, anyone opposed? Carried unanimously. Now we move to item number 5, Eleanor London Public Library. Councillor Torchman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have to go to the page. I apologize. That the Côte Saint-Luc City Council hereby declares the bid received from Roland Grenier Construction Limited documentarily non-conforming, therefore this bid is rejected. That pursuant to the terms of tender number C-09-21, the City Council hereby awards a contract for the replacement of the carpet at the Eleanor London Côte Saint-Luc Public Library to Roy et Fils for a maximum of $88,266.84 plus applicable taxes. That the described expenses shall be financed from the loan bylaw number 2565 entitled Bylaw 2565, authorizing a loan of $158,000 for the replacement of the carpet at the Eleanor London Public Library situated at 5851 Cavendish Boulevard, currently pending the approval of the Ministère des Affaires Municipales et de l'Habitation. That the awarding of the aforementioned contract shall be subject to the approval of the said Bylaw 2565 by the Ministère des Affaires municipales et de l'Habitation, that Treasury Certificate number TC-21-0064 was issued by the City Treasurer on March 30th, 2021 to test the availability of funds to cover the above described expenses.
Moved by Councillor Torgman, seconded by Councillor Gajowski. Any discussion, Councillor Torgman?
Thank you. So the carpet was replaced in 2005, and it's just, thankfully, it's been so much usage of our library, and we've managed to extend the life as far as possible. But now we're a good 15 years into the life, and it's time to change it. It'll give it a nice, refreshed look when we reopen to the public, hopefully soon.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried unanimously. We move to the next item, which is item number 6, Financial and Information Technology. 6A, Councillor Kajowski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved that bylaw 2554-2, amending bylaw 2554, entitled bylaw 2554-2, amending bylaw 2554, instituting a water filter rebate program in order to amend the amounts of the program provided by the amounts of the rebate provided by the program, be and is hereby adopted.
Okay, so that's moved by Councillor Gajowski, seconded by Councillor Erdely. Any discussion, Councillor Gajowski?
Just very briefly, and perhaps Councillor Erdely wants to speak to this as well, to add a $200 rebate for under sink filters. And I believe we corrected some wording as well. An annual rebate for up to $50 for residents that purchase above sink or under sink NSF 53 and NSF 58 replacement filters to reduce lead in drinking water. If Councillor Erdely wants to add anything, I believe he does.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Gajowski. Just to add that, as Councillor Gajowski mentioned, so the undersink applies to both the NSF 53 and NSF 58, because we had some residents that were purchasing undersink filters of the 2 different types. So we decided to cover both of them just to avoid any confusion. So the main one that residents will get is the reverse osmosis. And what that does is it's basically, osmosis is water going from an area of high concentration to low. So it's just doing the opposite to clean the air, to clean the water and remove the lead. And we hope, of course, residents will take part and apply for this grant. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? It's carried unanimously. And we move to the next item, which is 7B. Councillor Erdely.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be resolved that the Côte Saint-Luc City Council approves the attached list of disbursements for the period of March 1st, 2021 to March 31st, 2021 for a total amount of $4,433,819.28 in Canadian funds, and that Treasurer Certificate number 21-0067 dated April 6, 2021 has been issued by the City Treasurer, attesting to the availability of funds to cover the described expenses.
Thank you, Councillor Erdely, seconded by Councillor Ben-Isri. Any discussion?
So just to give some of the highlights for this month. So we have our annual payment for the CMM, the Communauté Métropolitaine de Montréal. We also have payments for the work on the City Hall building envelope, as well as snow removal, salt, and a capital bond repayment. Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? It's carried unanimously. And now we go to 6C. Last was 6A. This is 6C.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be it resolved, I guess I'll start with here. Be it resolved that the second whereas in the preamble of bylaw 2563 entitled bylaw 2563 authorizing a loan of $210,000 for the purchase and planting of various trees on the territory of Côte Saint-Luc be and is hereby replaced by the following. Whereas the loan contemplated by the present bylaw is decreed to allow expenditures related to an object included in the city's program of capital expenditures. And that the fourth, whereas in the preamble of bylaw 2563 entitled Bylaw 2563 authorizing a loan of $210,000 for the purchase and planting of various trees on the territory of the city of Côte Saint-Luc be and is hereby removed. And that Article 3 of Bylaw 2563 authorizing a loan of $210,000 for the purchase and planting of various trees on the territory of the city of Côte Saint-Luc be and is hereby replaced by the following, that the total term of this borrowing and its refinancing shall be 5 years, and that a certified copy of the present resolution be sent to the Ministère des Affaires Municipales et de l'Habitation.
Thank you, Councillor Early, seconded by Councillor Burku. Any discussion?
So just to explain, so this is basically, we are amending a bylaw that was previously adopted. The reason is, originally we were saying that the amount was going to be repaid over a term of 10 years. We realized because of the nature of the bylaw, it has to be a term of 5 years. And just to share, this is going to be, I'm just checking on the agenda. It is on 9B, a bit later on the agenda, we'll be actually adopting the purchase of the trees for 296 trees. And just to share a bit more background, I was looking at the tree totals over the last few years, mostly because of the Emerald Ash Borer. Since 2013, the city has had to cut down just over 2,000 trees. So 2,058 trees. I mean, we've managed to plant about 1,600. So we're still at a deficit of 457 trees. And with these 296, of course, we're going to get closer. The last few years, we've been planting more than we've been cutting down. We're going to continue to do that over the next few years to not just, let's say, remove or basically overcome the deficit, but hopefully have a tree surplus moving forward. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Early. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? It's carried unanimously. And then we move to the next item, which is general management. And it's Councillor Early, notice of motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hereby give notice of motion that bylaw 2574 to be entitled Bylaw 2574 instituting a financial assistance program for the purchase and installation of a home electric charging station will be presented at a later meeting for adoption. Furthermore, I'm tabling draft bylaw 2574 to be entitled Bylaw 2574 instituting a financial assistance program for the purchase and installation of a home electric charging station.
Thank you, Councillor Early. Any comments?
So just to explain briefly, so what this is for a grant in the amount of $250 per household. And right now we budgeted $10,000, so for 40 homes, although we could revisit it depending on the demand. So that is any resident of Côte Saint-Luc who purchased and installed a charging station since January 1st. So if that was actually, even if you purchased just before in 2020, but are only installing it in 2021, you would still be eligible for the grant. So this, of course, they'll have to go through a further reading, but once it is done, we'll be posting more information about this on our website. And of course, part of this is to encourage residents in Côte Saint-Luc to purchase electric vehicles. We know they're more environmentally friendly, cuts down on greenhouse gases, and makes the air cleaner for all the residents in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Early. Now we move on to item number 8, legal services. Councillor Cohen, about the speed limit.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I'm very pleased to move this bylaw entitled Bylaw 2321, amending Bylaw 2321 concerning speed in the streets in order to reduce the speed limit on Marc Chagall Avenue to 30 kilometers an hour. I so move that Bylaw 2321-6 entitled Bylaw 2321-6, amending Bylaw 2321 concerning speed in the streets in order to reduce the speed limit of Marc Chagall to 30 kilometers an hour be and is hereby adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Cohen, seconded by Councillor Torchman. Okay, very good. So that is in response to many concerns by residents on that street, and hopefully now it will be safer, and we'll have to ensure that that it's enforced. So,
Mr. Mayor, I just want to make a comment, if you don't mind.
go ahead.
I want to thank Councillor Torchman and the Traffic Committee for the work they did. This is a very serious issue, And we have been waiting kind of patiently for the Equinox, the lifelong Equinox project to end. It was 3.5 years. It's over now. There's some minor work they have to do, but it caused enormous amount of traffic, a lot of potential danger. Now we're back to Marc Chagall, and the traffic committee has been spending a lot of time looking at Marc Chagall. We know there's been a lot of complaints, a lot of concerns by citizens about cars racing down the street. Public security has been there, police have been there. But I think by making it a complete 30-kilometer zone, we hope we don't start getting complaints from residents of the street that they're getting tickets, because that's what they might be getting. Everyone is going to have to drive very slowly, just as I do every day, at least twice a day, 7 days a week. I drive down Marc Chagall. I drive through my district, but I drive down Marc Chagall, and certainly during the construction I do. So I'm urging citizens to be careful. And there's other measures that are going to be taken on Marc Chagall. That's not just the end of it, but it's a very, very good stance that we're taking here, and we're looking at other ways to make it safer as well.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Now we're going to move. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? So it's carried unanimously. And now we're going to go to the next item for deferral. Councillor Cohn, you can speak to it, but it is being deferred. So I get some motion for deferral.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we are going to defer the motion that we were going to pass tonight that would allow vote by mail for voters over 70. We do intend to bring that at
Next meeting.
council meeting, probably the next meeting. We have a little bit more information we need, and we need to time it appropriately. But the reality is we have to pass this by July 1st. We know with the current pandemic, this is something that we lobbied for very heavily, myself and yourself, Mr. Mayor, specifically. I'm pleased that they came up with something. It's not good enough as far as I'm concerned, but I think for those age 70 and over, this will be a plus if they don't feel safe to go to the polls. It doesn't fix the problem of how many people are going to want to work at the polls and so on and so forth. And let me say publicly how deeply disappointed I am in the Union of Quebec Municipalities, who we pay a membership fee, who basically gave me lip service for the past couple of months, whose website is basically strictly in French, and whose people just sent me kind of form letters back. They're supposed to represent it. They took a very lame stance on this whole situation. They really didn't stand up for us. And really who we have to thank is the Liberal opposition, our own David Birnbaum and their members of the National Assembly, and specifically their critic on municipal affairs. They really rose to the occasion, and the CAQ agreed. And so we came up with a compromise. So I think it's a plus. It's not good enough, but it's better than nothing, I suppose. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's been moved for deferral, seconded by Councillor for deferral, Erdely. And in terms of further discussion, I just want to say, again, it's Liberal critic Nichols, who I spoke to at depth and did present the situation of the city of Côte Saint-Luc and the fact that we're 34,000 people with 30% over the age of 65. And we got the age of 70, which is great. And the reason for deferral is because the DEGQ needs to finalize all the details. And if we pass it today, it might not be valid. We do have a requirement to pass this bylaw, but it was we were advised that we need to wait for the DEGQ to have all their regulations in effect, and they should have them before the next meeting in May. So we shall go forward then. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor of deferring? So it's deferred to the month of May. And now we move into Public Works. 9A, Councillor Benisri.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Est résolu que le conseil municipal de la ville de Côte Saint-Luc octroie par les présents un contrat pour la tonte de l'herbe sur les terrains vacants de la ville de Côte Saint-Luc pour les saisons 2021 et 2022 à Géris Bégin pour un maximum de 55 560 $ plus les taxes applicables. Que le certificat du trésorier numéro TC-0066 daté du 1er avril 2021 a été émis par le trésorier de la ville attestant la disponibilité des fonds pour couvrir les dépenses décrites.
Donc, est proposé par le conseiller Benizri et appuyé par le conseiller Early. OK, est-ce qu'il y a des discussions, le conseiller Benizri?
Non, c'est pour tondre les terrains vacants de Côte Saint-Luc durant la saison estivale.
Merci. Proposé et appuyé, tout le monde en faveur? Et contre, OK, passé unanimement. Et maintenant, on va aller au prochain numéro 9B, le conseiller Benizri.
Merci, monsieur le maire. Je m'excuse, voilà, je vais à la page. Et voilà. Est résolu que le conseil municipal de la ville de Côte Saint-Luc, par la présente, octroie un contrat à Pépinière Jardin 2000 Incorporé pour l'achat et la plantation d'arbres conformément aux conditions de l'appel d'offres numéro C-12-21 pour la somme de 214 450 $ plus les taxes applicables. Que la dépense décrite sera financée comme suit. 200 000 $ pour le règlement d'emprunt numéro 2563, intitulé Règlement 2563, autorisant un emprunt de 210 000 $ pour l'achat et la plantation de divers arbres sur le territoire de la ville de Côte Saint-Luc, actuellement en attente de l'approbation du ministère des Affaires municipales et de lapidation, MAM, 14 450 $ par le compte de revenus reportés relatif au dépôt pour les permis d'arbres, que l'octroi du contrat sus-mentionné est sous réserve de l'approbation du dit règlement d'emprunt 2563 par le MAM, que le certificat du trésorier numéro 21-0068 a été émis le 6 avril 2021 par le trésorier de la ville, attestant la disponibilité des fonds pour couvrir les dépenses décrites.
OK. Proposé par le conseiller Benizri et appuyé par le conseiller Torchman. Est-ce qu'il y a des discussions? Tout le monde en faveur? OK. Tout le monde en faveur?
Oui.
Tout le monde en faveur? OK, merci. All right, so it passed unanimously, and we're going to go to the next item, which is item 10, Urban Development Engineering. 10A, Councillor Torchman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
That the City of Côte Saint-Luc City Council hereby awards a contract for the line painting services for the year 2021 in accordance with the terms of tender number C-06-21C to Entreprise TRA 2011 Inc. for a total amount of $149,570.13 plus applicable taxes, that the Treasurer Certificate number TC21-0058 dated March 15, 2021 has been issued by the City Treasurer attesting to the availability of funds to cover the above described expenses.
Moved by Councillor Torchman, seconded by Councillor Benizri. Any discussion?
So this is our regular line painting project. I'm happy to say it's going to be starting as soon as the weather permits. The temperature has to be stable and above a certain, I think it's 5 degrees consistently. So they'll be starting in the next couple of weeks and hopefully be able to finish within about a month.
Excellent. Okay, so moved and seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried unanimously. And now we move to 10B. Councillor Cohen.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. The reason I'm turning to the left is if people are wondering is because I have two laptops. I'm reading from one and looking at you on the other. I so move that the City of Côte Saint-Luc hereby awards a contract to Les Pavages Saint Bruno for contractor services regarding the redevelopment of the basketball court in Rembrandt Park in accordance with the tender number C-1021C for a total amount of $74,535 plus applicable taxes, that furthermore, the city may consider an amount of 10% plus applicable taxes for any potential contingencies and extras if required, that shall first be approved according to the city's procedures, that the described expenses shall be financed from loan bylaw number 2564 entitled Bylaw 2564, authorizing a loan of $358,000, including professional fees for facility upgrades for various parks within the territory of the city of Côte Saint-Luc, currently pending the approval of the Ministère des Affaires Municipales d'Habitation, that the awarding of the aforementioned contract shall be subject to the approval of the said loan bylaw 2564 by MAMH, and that treasurer certificate number TC 210059 dated March 23rd, 2021 has been issued by the city treasurer attesting to the availability of funds to cover the described expenses.
Moved by Councillor Cohen, seconded by Councillor Torgman. Any discussion? Councillor Cohen.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. This is something that has been 5 years in the making. The basketball court at Rembrandt is in very poor condition and at the end of its lifespan. And basically what was intended 5 years ago was a facelift. And it was in the capital expenditures budget, and it's going to take place. Now, I spent a lot of time at Rembrandt Park. I certainly from spring through to fall, I visited every day, talked to the users. And it's an interesting situation because if you go a little bit more than a decade ago, the population on Rembrandt was almost entirely senior. And they didn't want the basketball courts. In fact, they were protesting and asking for it to be removed. And it was something that was discussed, but we didn't do it. And as years went by, the courts turned from being used by non-residents to residents of Merrimack, of Rembrandt, of neighboring streets. It's become very popular. But one thing that's developed in our city is, people want to get involved, and we have a lot of people who love playing basketball. And in the last couple of weeks, we've been hearing from a lot of people who have expertise with basketball who want to give their input. And many of them were concerned. They felt that we could build perhaps a better court and with better quality. And we heard them. And so we had a choice to make. Do we reject this tender and not repair the court, which is dangerous and doesn't even have proper backboards? Or do we give it a fresh look and make it a great court that people can have fun with? So I think we've agreed. We had a great meeting today, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for calling it. And Councillor Burku, I'd like her to give her comments because she had a lot of input as well. We had a great meeting today with the whole team, with the city management team, with our engineer who worked very hard on the project, our recreation director, our public works director, and I think we came to an understanding. And one of my requests, and they said they're going to do it, is right now Rembrandt courts are being used by a lot of people, and the adults will take the court and the young kids will have nowhere to play. We need to find a place for the young kids to play. And so the way to do that is with the contractor, we're going to try to find a way to build at least one asphalt and at least one basket for kids at a lower level for them to be able to play basket so they don't get kicked off the court and they have nowhere to play. And I spoke to one of the associations today, and they are open to sponsorship of perhaps doing something a little bit more elaborate. It would be private money that would come in to help with an overcost, and we would be able to perhaps put a better mini court, if you will, for the young people. So I intend to speak to our engineer, our recreation director as early as tomorrow and try to arrange a phone call with these basketball experts and see if we can come up with some kind of partnership. But we need to adopt this tonight. Otherwise, we're going to be able to get this repairs done in May, and people are going to be able to enjoy a very, very excellent and much improved basketball court with benches, with lighting this summer. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Councillor Burku does have, so I'd like her to speak if she can, because she did have a lot of good input. Thank you.
Councillor Burku.
Thank you, Mike. So yeah, like with many of these tender documents and these contracts, I asked a lot of questions. I don't always air them public, but I do ask a lot of questions, and I asked a lot of questions about the type of materials that were going to be used, and but mostly on the surface and also on the backboard and the type of equipment, etc. And I did receive a lot of good answers today from engineering with regard to the budget process. We wanted to stay within budget, and it was very clear from the answers that I received that the repaving, the asphalt as it was going to keep it within budget. Doing something else was going to go over budget if we wanted to go to a rubberized surface or some kind of aluminum and other types of backboards. So given all the responses that I got today and the explanations, and also Mike's consultation with a group that works with young kids and also is just wanting to add more space for young kids, I think that this is a very good thing to go forward, and I'm looking forward to it. So it should be a good improvement for the area. So I will be voting for it. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank Councillor Cohen for working with staff to get this major facelift to the park. I think it's going to be very well received by families and young kids. And if we can add a little mini hoop for younger kids, that would really be great. This council does have intention to ensure that we have recreational facilities for families and kids to enjoy, as well as professional style facilities like our aquatics in the swimming pool, like our indoor and outdoor arena, like our baseball fields, like our tennis club. And we do want to have, and we have temporary pickleball at Caldwell, but we want permanent pickleball courts at the tennis club. And we're hoping for a professional size basketball court at that area, as well as phase 2 of Kerwin Park. So we need to serve both all needs, whether it's the teenagers and young adults in more professional style, and young families and kids. And I think this is a great work. What is hard to do is when you have an existing park that was built in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s for recreational purposes, to just change it from its recreational purpose. So this is a lot of great work that you're doing, and I'm glad that it's moving forward. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried unanimously. And now we move to the next item, which is item 10C, Councillor Torchman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That the City of Côte Saint-Luc hereby awards a contract for the professional services regarding pneumatic excavation and lead pipe replacement to Group Civitas Inc. for a total amount of $116,250 plus applicable taxes, that the described expenses shall be financed from the loan bylaw number 2559 previously approved by the Ministère des Affaires Municipales et de l'Habitation. The Treasurer Certificate number TC-21-0065 dated March 29, 2021 has been issued by the City Treasurer, attesting to the availability of funds to cover the above described expenses.
Thank you, Councillor Torchman, seconded by Councillor Gajewski. Any discussion?
This is for the testing of water service entrance to various residents in Côte Saint-Luc. We're trying to establish the scope of the lead pipe issue that we have in Côte Saint-Luc.
Thank you, Councillor Torchman. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried unanimously. And now we move on to 11A. Councillor Erdely. No, Councillor Ministry, generally speaking. But Councillor Gajewski has his hand up, so go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to call a point of order at this point. I move that we defer this item to the May public meeting.
Okay. I would like to just point out before we go forward on the vote, that we followed a procedure for this COLEL process. This is the item on the agenda dealing with the second reading of the zoning bylaw for the COLEL project. So the first reading, after the first reading, we had a 15-day consultation process. During that process, we received 162 emails giving various reasons why they do not support the project. We did not receive any emails in favor of the project, although 3 were received saying they would consider it another location. Our obligation and duty as a council is to act based on the process. So the first is the reading, and then there's the consultation process, which is very clear that the residents who had their right to consult provided their various comments in detail of why they're not in favor of the project. Now, as a council, we have a legal obligation to act and not create a false sense of security or belief that this project can go forward, because we know the process is a register, which would easily be signed. You need 12 signatures per zone in order for those individuals to be able to vote. And based on the high number of people that have sent in their consultation process, we know that 50% plus 1 to pass the project is not attainable. So there's no way for the present project to be able to move forward. So we therefore have our responsibility and duty to follow the process, which is stop it here because it can't go further than here successfully, and give the opportunity for the Collel to come to us with a new proposal that we would then have to go through PAC, council, and have a new bylaw drafted to present to the public. And I have a legal opinion that basically says that we're not allowed to accept changes to a zoning bylaw such as the one before us, unless they're extremely minor. And because the requests are major, such as the height or the setbacks, we cannot modify that. We have no legal right to modify setback or height, and we have to start with a new bylaw. So deferring the vote on this is only deferring the agony for the entire community instead of moving forward positively, like we have done in the past when it came to Chabad, for example, and they didn't have a first location success and a second location success. Eventually, we found them a good location and they're thriving and contributing well to our community. And we're happy that we have them in our community and they're very well placed next to Bialik, and it all worked out well. But to defer something that we know has no possibility of going forward is first having the individuals that are against it not understanding that their comments were being heard and followed up on, as our obligation to do so, and also is sending a message to the Collel that is not true, because I have a legal opinion from lawyers that it's very clear that no major changes. They have to be extremely minor, otherwise you can't do them. So we can't really move forward with changing the bylaw, and it can't succeed at registry and referendum. So therefore, it is my strong recommendation to vote on this particular bylaw as it is written, and then move forward with new plans, as the lawyer states from Bélanger, Sauvé, Marc Lalonde, that if the Collel is willing to revise their scope of the project, then the city would consider adopting a new first draft bylaw based on this revised project and present it to the public for consultation. That is the legal process that we are obliged to follow. So that's the law. Moved by Councillor Kajewski for deferral, seconded by Councillor Torgman. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. All against? As is my right, I'm allowed to vote on this, and because it's our legal obligation to do so, I am. So it's 4 to 4, Maître Prévost. So I believe that falls, and we go to the vote for the item. Correct? Correct. Okay, so now the motion to move ahead on the project as it is written in its present form, based on the height, density, and everything the way it is proposed. Moved by, anybody want to move forward the project? Moved by Councillor Torgman, seconded by Councillor Benizri. Any discussion? You don't need to discuss, but you can. If you want to discuss, Councillor Kajewski, you may discuss. my recommendation is to talk as little as possible and just move forward positively with a new proposal that we can all get behind.
I just think it's important that stakeholders understand why I'm voting the way I am tonight. So as you said, unfortunately, the project is just not viable in its current form. The feedback we got following the public consultation was clear. If I vote yes, registers in the contiguous zones will be opened and the zoning amendment will go to a referendum that will be divisive. Therefore, a yes vote in this matter is quite simply a vote in favor of a divisive referendum. Ironically, a yes vote for the second draft of the zoning bylaw is then a vote against the project in its current form. Yes vote is a vote against, to be clear. To move forward in this way is the exact opposite of all parties' desire to open positive lines of communication between the Colel community and those in Côte Saint-Luc who have not yet had the opportunity to get to know members of a growing Colel community in our city. And I had the opportunity to advance my knowledge of the Colel community in a very eye-opening call with Rabbi Benoliel and with a constituent of mine who's been a member of that congregation for 20 years. Far more favorable path at this point would be to end the process, begin the process of retooling the plan, while simultaneously starting a meaningful community outreach that will lead to a much better end result for everyone. If I may end with, just imagine a Colel project that is welcomed by all Côte Saint-Lucers and by all politicians. I'd like to say as well that I believe that the Colel community deserves a home. I believe that this particular location can be appropriate for that home, but the project in its form right now is a square peg that we're trying to fit into a round hole. My hope is that we can all come together in a collaborative way to create a project that'll be embraced by the entire community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Erdely, and then was Councillor Cohen, and then Councillor Erdely. So Councillor Cohen. Thank you, Councillor Kajavsky, I should say.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I must tell you, I've been struggling for most of the last hour plus. I've been communicating with Councillor Torgman, Councillor Sabag, Councillor Ben Isri, Councillor Kajavsky, and I was going one way or the other. Should I support deferring this item to next month? You know, in the 16 years I've been on city council, this has been the most divisive issue that I've been involved in. It's pitted one member of the same community against another. I respect the many comments that came from people such as Maimonides, people who live in the area, people who use the area, who had very viable concerns about traffic. I voted in favor of the process one so that it could go forward and proceed to the public consultation. I felt that just voting it down after all the work that was done, I think we needed to find a way to, you know, let the public speak. I wasn't very pleased with how the public consultation went and a lot of the foul language and how things went about on Facebook. I wasn't proud of being a Côte Saint-Lucer by hearing a lot of the comments that were made. I think we have a lot of mending to do in our own community. I was saying in our in-camera meeting that my favorite show on Netflix is Stitzel. Still haven't been able to pronounce it properly. I just finished watching the 3rd season. And it's all, one of the major points is about why they have Colels and how the families, and you really become touched by Colels. It had an effect on me. I've watched the last 2 seasons, the last 3 seasons, the last 2 years. We're very lucky to have a Colel like this in our community. We need to work with them. I supported them from the beginning. I support them now. But I do feel that voting to defer, the only reason I would have voted for defer is so that we would not have 4 Ashkenazi councillors voting against it and 3 Sephardic councillors voting for it. I wanted there to be a united vote, a unanimous vote next month, where we would all not vote against it, but we would all vote saying we cannot adopt this bylaw because we know it's not going to pass. We could have passed it tonight. The public will vote it down. I think what we need to do is we need to work with the Colel. We need to educate our community at large as to who they are and what they do and what they're going to do with this facility and who uses their practice. Look, we worked for years with Beth Chabad. We made them a place to live, to work. They're part of our greater community. And I think the operators of the Colel deserve the same opportunity. have that piece of land. It's got to be refunctioned. But I think between now and then, rather than just come back with a project, we have to find a way to introduce them to the greater community through consultation, and marketing is what I do for a living. I volunteered to Rabbi Ben Oliel to help him in any way I can to market what they do so that we can come back with a project that everyone can be happy with. It's not good enough to say, we'll try to do something about the parking. You know, that's not something you can just correct, in the next couple of weeks. It's got to be part of a brand new proposal so that the people who came to us will see, okay, here's the new proposal. Parking's not an issue anymore. We get rid of those issues, and then I'm voting in favor of it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cohen. Who is next? Anyone else? Councillor Erdely? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to begin by saying a few things, and I'll start actually with a comment similar to Councillor Cohen. I didn't participate in the public consultation, but I watched it from my own home, and I was not happy with the comments, and I was disappointed in many of the comments. And to be honest, I was disappointed in some residents who reached out to me directly with some of the things they said. My points that I brought up have always been about the merits of it in terms of the distances, in terms of the heights, and I'll speak to some of those in a moment, but I was not happy with some of the things that were said, so I want to be clear on that. I also want to mention I feel bad. I feel badly for Rabbi Ben Oliel. I feel badly for the Kollel because we failed as a council. When a resident comes to me and says, oh, I want to do some renovations on my home, what is the bylaw? What will pass? What will go through PAC? What will go through through the public and so on in terms of consultation? My goal is to advise them, say, hey, this is what PAC is generally approved. This is what will be approved, and your neighbors and so on. And I'll share with them that, and I'll try to point them in the right direction. On this occasion, we failed as a council. We should have sat down with Rabbi Ben Oliel and said, no, you need to fix this. You cannot have a zero setback. I went through all 200 zones. I reviewed over 200 zones, I should say, in the city of Côte Saint-Luc, and there's not a single zone in the city of Côte Saint-Luc where we have a zero setback, meaning you could build right up to the property line. And it's something that is not acceptable. I think maybe Montreal, I think I shared Montreal does it on occasion, but it's something we've never done in the history of the city of Côte Saint-Luc. In terms of the height was 79 feet, almost 80 feet. More than or roughly double the 40 feet of the previous structure. And if I compare to every other institution in the city of Côte Saint-Luc, they're all in the vicinity of 30 to 40 feet. So it's about double the height of any other institutional building. In terms of the lot coverage, at 80% lot coverage is higher than any other institutional building in the city of Côte Saint-Luc. And basically, we agreed to these things, which the public will not accept in terms of the height, in terms of the size. And like I said, my recommendation from the beginning was to go a little smaller, to have a setback. If I compare even to the previous structure that they had proposed on Mackle, closer to Cavendish Mall, it was about twice the footprint and about twice the height. So if you can imagine, about 3.5 to 4 times the volume of the previous building. And again, we should have advised Rabbi Ben Oliel and the Kollel to say, make it a little bit smaller and, maybe have a proper setback. The original structure had a setback of 25 feet, which was a reasonable setback, which was a proper front setback. And again, that is where we failed as a council. Now, my hope is that we will be able to have discussions with the Kollel and be able to better advise them on what makes more sense in terms of the dimensions, in terms of the size, in terms of the scope. And I hope that they will follow through on the agreement that was made in 2015 in terms of the agreement. The spirit of the agreement was always to take the non-conforming property, convert it back to a residential, and to have a new conforming proper synagogue, proper Kollel community center. And I still hope that, I hope that we can have that discussion. My hope is that we can come back with a proposal that will be unanimous by all of council, that will be accepted by the community, and that will enable Rabbi Benoliel and the Kollel to continue serving the community, and I wish them all the best.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. But when you say we failed as a council, you're not including yourself because you were consistent throughout.
Well, I would say, if I may, Mr. Mayor, I failed in that maybe I wasn't loud enough behind closed doors. I didn't speak. Maybe I didn't get my point across to my fellow councilors. So in that case, I failed to, my opinion has always been the same, both behind closed doors and in public. What I say is what I believe. But I would say I failed in that I didn't speak loud enough or clearly enough to my fellow councilors behind closed doors to convince them that this would not sell publicly. So I would say in that sense, I failed. But all that to say, I will be voting against this project. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else have comments? What I would want to say was that it was a difficult one in terms of getting the council to accept the issues that Councillor Lee just brought up. Our professionals in PAC were very clear, and what Councillor Lee has repeated is not from his own opinion. It's what our professionals at PAC told us, and what I agreed with all along, but the majority of council felt the project would go forward. I mean, the main issues were 90, the height being 79 feet, and the last proposal was 40 feet. So the original was 40 feet, and this one's 79 feet. That's major. And in terms of the setback and in terms of density, the density went up from 4,668 square feet size to 9,366. So it was a lot more dense. So there are areas where they can cut back if I know their needs are perhaps greater, and maybe we can find another location. I'll have to cut back. But when I saw the first proposal at 40 feet and a nice look to it, and we found this berm for them, I thought that maybe something of that nature would fit on that site. But unfortunately, their needs grew, and I don't know if the berm's big enough for them now. I just don't know. We'll have to see. Councillor Torchman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A lot's been said. There's a lot of we should have, we could have. Helping communities move forward and thrive is an important role in our municipal government. We are supposed to be a force for good, helping our residents live together as neighbors and helping them develop together properly and in a legal way. Seeing the bigger picture and planning for the future is exactly what we're here for. And unfortunately, it's been missing for many years. Every single time there's been a motion to establish an institution in Côte Saint-Luc, there's been opposition. And I've been part to that, some of that, those debates. So be it a school, a synagogue, a community center, there's always been a concern and an alarmist rhetoric about how this would change the nature of our city. Well, I can tell you for sure it has changed the nature of our city. Every one of those institutions has enriched our community, embellished our city, and the positive outcomes are here for all of us to enjoy. Schools have attracted and kept young families in Côte Saint-Luc. Synagogues and community centers have been filled, and the house values have risen around those institutions. Yes, those projects had drawbacks, such as proximity to residents, increasing traffic, and limited parking, but these are common with every single institution. I agree that this project can be improved, but by and large, the majority of this council was in favor over the last 3 years of planning. We took the Kollel for 3 years and told them what to do, and they agreed, and they agreed, and they moved forward until this project. We are sitting here tonight as your representatives, trying to find a path forward, and we must stop pitting residents against each other to mitigate this and previous councils' repeated failures. Yes, we have failed. I agree with Councillor Erdely. This council has failed by not passing this resolution tonight. The Kollel is looking to purchase this piece of land based on a recommendation by the previous council to conform to zoning regulations. They have followed every directive issued by this council for the last 3 years, only to be told by the same council now that they're reversing their vote. This is not fair and it's not right. This project could have passed, and we are letting an entire community down today. This is a direct result of a 30-year-old issues. homes being converted to shoals without proper and legal process. That has been willfully ignored by every single mayor and council for the last 30 years, for fear of making waves and losing votes. I've been asked repeatedly where I stand on the non-conforming buildings. Well, I was one of the first and few on council that started the discussion to put an end to these non-conforming establishments. For decades, nothing was done to guide this growing community. And they're part of our community. They had nowhere to build, so they bought homes and they converted them. They all wanted to conform and build legally, but no options were made available to them, and nothing was done to stop them from establishing themselves. This is not proper governance, and this is not sustainable. So I don't like the political games that are being played on the backs of the community. This is our community as a whole, yours and mine. The ugly part of local politics needs to stop once and for all. The community wishing to build a synagogue and a learning center for adults is not being built by outsiders. They're being built by people within our community, your friends and your neighbors. So yes, we've gotten, I think it was 167 emails, but those emails are not from immediate concerned residents. There's emails that we're getting from Côte Saint-Luc Road, who have no direct concern with what's going on on that street. So I understand that there's a sentiment of not wanting other institutions in Côte Saint-Luc, but we have to understand where there are issues. So I want to be clear, our vote today, it was a move to rezone this piece of land in a legal way, in a way that allows the residents to have their say, to object or to accept the project in a formal and democratic manner. That's what this process would have allowed. Today's vote, if we would have voted yes, would have allowed the process to continue in a legal way where residents in the immediate areas would have had a voice. And they could have voted for or against, and I got many emails against, and I got many emails for the project. So I'm voting against political maneuvering. I'm voting against backtracking on promises. I'm voting for proper zoning. I'm voting for allowing new institutions to be built in our community. I am voting for responsible governance. And for those reasons, I am maintaining my vote today in favor of voting for this zoning change. Thank you.
Councilor Torchman. Councilor Berkut.
Okay. So I listened very carefully. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I listened very carefully to the previous comments. And I would like to make some short remarks. I'm going to try and keep it brief, but I do feel I have to respond to what has just been stated. I want to make it very clear that in 2017, I did vote for the first rezoning request next to the Cavendish Mall, as the Collel asked us to relocate from Parkhaven. Relocaliser from Parkhaven. A few times they said to us, on veut relocaliser. Relocate means moving from one place to another. And based on that fair exchange that they would give up Parkhaven in order to build something on Mackle, I voted for it. I was part of that vote. And they told us in writing that they would give up their use of Parkhaven, and not only their use of Parkhaven, but of all non-conforming uses. It's in writing. All non-conforming uses in exchange for a conforming use on Mackle. And so I voted for it. And when that rezoning failed, in 2019, they came back and they said, okay, now we would like to buy a piece of land in order to do the same thing. We're going to relocate and give up our non-conforming uses. And that's what I understood. And that's what I said at the time, that I would sell land on two conditions. And I said it in 2019, and I'm reading from my 2019 speech. The first condition was the Collel should give up Parkhaven location as it has agreed in 2015. And the second was the Collel should give up their use of all tax exemptions on the residences on Eldridge, which suddenly popped up. It's not 30 years. They popped up in 2016, 2017. All of a sudden we woke up one morning and there were 3 non-conforming tax exempt properties. And we were saying, where did this come from? And we asked and we said, oh, by the way, we not only have Park Haven, now we have 3 duplexes on Eldridge, which we also are going to use for rabbis and for places of worship. And we know those addresses very well. So unlike all the other religious institutions that have 1 synagogue, 1 rabbi, we have a situation here, and I want to be fair. I want to be fair to the Kollel. I want to be fair to all the taxpayers and fair to all the religious institutions in Côte Saint-Luc. 1 synagogue, 1 rabbi, that's fair. Not 1 synagogue, 1 rabbi, and 3 other tax exempt properties. So now we're up to 4 and 5. And if we get the Kollel on Mackle, we'll be up to 6. That's, for me, an issue of fairness. And I don't believe that at this point in time, if we're going to accommodate by selling land, by rezoning and doing everything else, that the city should refuse to impose these 2 conditions. And so basically those were my conditions then, and they're still my conditions now. The very least that the city should request is that the Kollel give up their main establishment on Park Haven and also all the other tax exempt properties which house the rabbis and residents. And not to do so is to give the Kollel an unfair advantage over other synagogues and all other taxpayers of Côte Saint-Luc. So not only are we tolerating non-conforming uses, but we would be rewarding an institution in the face of its multiple tax exempt properties. And that has been my fundamental issue. And from there, the rest flows. You know, you want to give them all kinds of concessions, this far from the sidewalk, that side, this side. These are all things that are negotiable, obviously. But for me, the fundamental issue of fairness with regard to how a community organization is treated, I think has to be addressed. And that is my objection. It has been since 2019 when we first started discussing the sale of this land. I'm reading exactly the speech I gave in 2019. And there were many, it was open council. I remember there were many members of the Kollel in the audience. They heard me then. It's the same speech that I gave then, I'm giving now. And that is my position. And if the council now wants to re-entertain a new project, I would strongly urge the council to impose those 2 conditions.
Right. And I want to thank Councillor Burko for being so clear, and the consultations were very clear. So I want Councillor Torgman to undertake to do exactly what Councillor Burko is saying. If we're going to entertain a new location, and you are so in favor of dealing with all the non-conforming institutions, we start with this one. And we're going to start with this one. We're going to do it properly. And we're going to find them a legal place to be, just like Chabad. And I'll have one house, just like Rabbi Raskin. And all the other institutions will be properly zoned. And all the ones that are in homes will be properly zoned if they pass the PCM bylaw and the residents allow them to stay where they are. And then the rabbi will have a house. That is the way it works. You're supposed to be in a proper zoning. Now, in terms of this particular situation, my track record speaks for itself. I'm the guy that fought for Chabad through all 3 locations and found them a place. I'm the guy that fought for Hebrew Academy when I was a city councilor for it to be expanding. I went door to door for Chaim to get it expanded. And I'm working with Rabbi Ben-Oliel and this community to find them a place. Otherwise, we wouldn't have gone from the first step to the second step, and now we're going to go to the 3rd step. But at the same time, we are going to deal with all the non-conforming institutions in our community, and we are going to find out from the neighborhood if the community is happy where they are or if they need to be in strip malls. That is an issue we are going to deal with, and we're dealing with it with the Kollel as well. They are not any more special than all the other non-conforming institutions. All of them have to be dealt with fairly. And if the community is happy where they are and that's where they want to stay and they don't want to find another place to get proper zoning, then they'll go and apply for the PCM right to have an additional use and stay where they are if their community allows. Otherwise, they'll go into a strip mall or They also go on the berm at Public Works. And that's hopefully, well, if that could work at the berm at Public Works, we have to come up with a plan that meets a reasonable density, a reasonable proposal that meets the concerns that we've received through this consultation process. We have to read them carefully, understand them, and come up and speak clearly to Rabbi Benolio and the entire community so they understand what the community will accept and come up with a project that is acceptable for the community. And that's the way we're going to be going. And hopefully it's going to go well, because we do value all the institutions that we have in our community and all the schools. They provide great value to our homes, to our residences, and to us all. So I think everybody has spoken at least once. If somebody else hasn't, we're going to call for the vote. Are we still on the vote for deferral, or did we do that one? That one lost. So now on the vote, Councilor Torgman moved it, it was seconded. Okay, so everybody spoke. All in favor of the project as it is written, with the density and the setbacks as it is written. 1, 2, 3. Councilor Sabag, we don't see you. Maybe he's out of the room. Okay, all opposed. Okay, so 2 in favor and 1, 2, 3, 4 opposed. Okay, so the present bylaw lapses, and we invite Rabbi Benolio and the Colo to meet with staff immediately to look into what are the next steps in order to help them move forward in a positive way and find an acceptable and positive addition to our community. So that is that item. And the next one is item 11.1A, Councillor Burku.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This one is dealing with a property on Aldrin. So be it resolved that the site planning and architectural integration program showing modifications to the facade of a single-family detached dwelling on lot 1560810 at 6529 Aldrin and prepared by Charles Ohayon, contractor, for the Planning Advisory Committee meeting of February 23rd, 2021, be approved according to the provisions of Chapter 14 of Bylaw 2217 of the City of Côte Saint-Luc.
Okay, moved by Councilor Burku. Second, I'm looking at my screen. Seconded by Councilor Cohen. Any
So
discussion?
this is basically a modification of the facade, which was finally approved by the PAC. So that's basically repairs to the facade due to water infiltration. It was modifications as well.
All right. So
But the work has already been done. That was the issue, but we now approved it.
So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried unanimously. The chat is now open if there's questions that people want to submit for second question period. Now we go to item number 12, Councillor Sabag.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That the council take the following stance in view of any agglomeration council meetings to be held in May 2021 as follows: to authorize the mayor or the duly authorized replacement to make any decisions he deems necessary and in the best interest of the City of Côte Saint-Luc and its residents regarding the items on the agenda of the agglomeration council meeting to be held in May 2021 based on the information to be presented during those meetings.
Moved by Councillor Sabag, seconded by Councillor Torgman. All in favor? Councillor Cohen? Carried unanimously. And now we move to other business. Any other business? So we have the second question period, and we'll wait if we haven't received any questions, a little bit of time so people can post their questions and Maître Provost can receive them. Have you received any yet, Maître Provost?
There's no questions as of yet. Just a reminder to refresh the YouTube page before posting in the chat.
So on Thursday at 11:45, the parade for Yom Ha'atzmaut leaves from Bialik and starts around the streets of Côte Saint-Luc. So if you're looking for the parade, you should look out your windows starting at, that time, noon. Should be coming around the city. What else is doing this week? Okay, any other questions? Check again, refresh and check. Okay, all right.
No questions right now.
Okay, so I'll call for adjournment. Moved by Councillor Sabag, seconded by Councillor Kajewski, all in favor. We are adjourned, and we meet here or somewhere else, Councillor Darrell Levine.